How's it everyone, it's Ren from the planet. Welcome back to our YouTube channel. Today I wanted to do a Cardfight Vanguard video, specifically on the BTO4 meta, kind of. A lot of people have done tier lists. I know WCC just released one that's really good, go check it out. And people have done like meta watches and stuff. What I wanted to do is I wanted to touch on two of my favorite decks, and two decks that actually made it to the top of the meta, one of which is Magnolia, with Magnolia Elder being released, and the other is Gravidia. So let's get into those. So let's get into Mags, or Magnolia. So Magnolia was one of the first decks released for Cardfight Vanguard once they revamped into D format. And she was actually probably the worst out of all of the 5 starter decks. I love her ability when she can attack from back row. I think it gives a lot of attack choices and a lot of different attack patterns. But with that ability, you didn't have the power to push attacks through from the back row, especially if you're not boosting into the front row either. A lot of lines would be 15 to 18k base. You could help this through with cards like Adamantis, which gave the 5k boost when it got called, or cards like Junosla, who can add its power to another unit if it's attacking from the back row. But besides that, it just lacked power to push through attacks, especially if your opponent hit an early trigger in your like attack phase or whatever you want to call it. That does hamper your attack a lot. But now coming into BTO4, Magnolia now has a lot of tools to keep its consistency up, along with Magnolia Elder helping out, being able to call units from Soul, and we'll get into a unit that synergizes with that. Also letting all of your units intercept, if they have intercept, from the back row is really nice. It helps you survive, and then you can recycle your units more. A card that actually helped out Magnolia, and that wasn't even meant for Magnolia, it's a card that's meant for Flagberg. There's a card called Inlet Pulse Dragon, or Blue Artillery something Inlet Pulse Dragon. Its first ability synergizes with Flagberg. It's like if you attack first with this unit and your Vanguard is Flagberg, then you can stand it by, I think it's Soul Blasting. But its second ability really synergizes with Magnolia Elder, like specifically with Magnolia Elder, because if you had attacked 4 or more times in a turn, you can add Inlet Pulse to the Soul and draw a card. This synergizes with Magnolia Elder really well because when you call Magnolia Elder, it specifically says you can choose a card in your Soul and call it to rear. So you can recycle this combo every turn to just get a card. Another huge card that Magnolia got, and is actually probably one of the most expensive cards in the deck right now because it's a promo, is NPix. So NPix is a grade 2, 8k only, but if you have it in the back row rear, it automatically gains 10k. So essentially, if you're just playing the game well, you have a back row grade 2, which can intercept with Magnolia Elder, and it has 18k base power. The second part of its effect says, if you have 3 or less rear guards in the same column as NPix cannot be chosen for card effects. So that would mean both NPix and the unit probably in front of NPix cannot be chosen for card effects. Things like Gravidia can't target with its meteors anymore to retire it, which is really nice. Helps your board be sticky, so yeah. I do actually see a lot of variance in Magnolia Elder decks. I see a lot of people splashing stuff. I see some people playing Magnolia, just pure Magnolia. I see actually a lot of people playing Zorgnolia and playing the Regurgitation of the Underworld, the grade 3 that retires an opponent's unit, and then you can call. Along with the grade 1 order that lets you, the one with the spirit like this. I can't remember, it's blue. I can't remember what it's called, but it does let you call a unit from your drop. And it gives it 5k, I think. People don't run Wild Intelligence anymore just because it specifically names Mags, not Magnolia Elder. I do see some people play like 1 copy very rarely just because they do play a Persona Ride backup of Magnolia, or a lot of people do at least. So sometimes you have 2 turns to get Wild Intelligence off, but definitely not worth running 4 copies. Other cards that I see splashed, I see a lot of Junosla. I think it does help still get your power through from the back row. I see people running Panthero, but Panthero is kind of a commitment. It's the Panther that calls a copy of itself from the drop. It's not worth running, obviously not worth running run because you don't have the other copy to call. Even 2, I see a lot of people running 3 or 4. It does take up slots, but you know, it does get 2 units for the price of 1 essentially when you call 1. In terms of trigger distribution, I do see a lot of variance. I've seen like 1 or 2 people maybe play heavy crit decks, although I don't think that's the best way. I think a lot of people do play heavy into draw and heavy into fronts. Any variance of that. I do see some rainbow decks usually playing only 3 crits, especially with the addition of effect draws. It's just too good not to run draws in the deck, especially since you want to be able to recycle units, or you want to be able to keep that persistence on board. Okay, now let's get into Gravidia. So Gravidia was actually a really fun deck that I just happened to pick up at the beginning of BTO 3 when it came out. I thought it would just be super fun to just bash your opponent with meteors, but it turned out to be a pretty good deck actually. And it turned out to be an even better deck in BTO 4. So Gravidia didn't get a grade 4, but it did get a lot of really good support. Probably the most iconic is, its meteors. So we have Hell Hazard. You can only run 4 of it, but it counts for 2 meteors instead of 1 when you're using it for Gravidia's ability. You can't recycle it though because it doesn't go to the drop, it goes to the bind. So you can't use cards like Relic, which also just came out. Relic can pull a meteor from either your deck or your drop and put it into the order zone. The other big card that you absolutely run 4 of now is Bakubirito, which is the grade 3. Bakubirito also pulls a meteor from your drop when you place it on rear by Soul Blasting 1. So its other effect is during your turn, when your opponent's rear guards are retired, usually by Gravidia's effect. If 1 was retired, then it gains 5k, and if at least 3 were retired, it gains +1 crit. So Hell Hazard, although it counts as 2 meteors towards Gravidia's effect, it doesn't retire 2 units when it leaves. So it does make Bakubirito's effect a little wonky when working with Gravidia. Usually you sack 3 meteors, so that'd be 1 Hell Hazard and 1 meteor, or 3 meteors. So if you're doing 3 meteors, it works with Bakubirito just fine. But if you're doing 1 Hell Hazard, it actually doesn't quite count towards Bakubirito's effect. If by off chance you were going for 5 and you used 2 Hell Hazards, then yeah, that would be 3 meteors, or plus the 1. So 2 Hell Hazards and 1 meteor, that would be 3 for Bakubirito's effect, and then that would be 5 for Gravidia. Although you just never do that. I think I've done it once in all of the time that I've played Gravidia, so yeah. I do see some people flexing some other cards into Gravidia as well. I think it's called a B. It's the one with the yellow, or I think it's yellow. It might be green. I don't know. I'm kind of colorblind, but it's the grade 1 8k. If you have 3 or more meteors in your order zone, then you can add 1 from your hand to the order zone. I think a lot of people are seeing it as a replacement for Wells, but I really don't see a lot of extra meteors in your hand. So I really don't see the use for it. Some people do run 1 or 2, but I'm not running any. Another card that I see actually people running a lot of is Shergo. I do run 2 copies of this in my deck. As you can see, it's an effect. You Soul Blast, and you can choose up to 5 meteorites in your drop, add them back to your deck, and kind of similar to how Gravidia's ability scales. If you add 1 back into your deck, it gains 5k. If you add 3, it gains another 5k. Or if you add 5, it gains 15k in total. And then in terms of cards from BTO 3, I do see people still running 4 copies of Stanner. A lot of people kind of like to run a high roll copy of Barringer, but people don't run that anymore just because you just don't need it. And there's way better cards to fill that slot. In terms of trigger lineup, I do see people still running a very heavy crit line, either 8-3 or 7-4. That 3 or 4 cards, I do still see people running fronts. I do see people running draws now though. I still personally prefer fronts, but because effect draws are added into the game, it's very comparable. So, that's up to you. Figure out your play style, of course. So yeah, that's it for me. Thanks for watching, everyone. Hope you enjoyed my little look into my favorite decks. Super stoked to see them in the top of the meta. I think Mags is at the top right now, where Gravidia is a little below that, along with decks like Barrow. I think Bastion Prime is coming up to there as well. I'm gonna link WCC's tier list in the description below, just because I didn't do a traditional kind of tier list, and if you wanted one of those, you can go check theirs out. I'm sure it's great. Please leave a like, give us a subscribe. I want to see comments in the comment section down below of your favorite flex card in your deck. I like to see everybody's playstyle through that. But otherwise, yeah, that's it for me. See you in the next video. Shoots.